The spring training exhibition games are off to the races, and we're beginning to get our first look at this new Phillies roster. Max Kepler was one of the prized additions of the offseason, the biggest positional player that was brought in, and is making a positive early impression. In addition, Edmundo Sosa has been hinted at a potential role change on this Phillies team following a little bit of injury news. Doing a breakdown exactly what we're seeing from Kepler, as well as my thoughts on Sosa and his role within this Phillies team. But before I dive fully into it, do want to remind you guys, make sure you are smashing that subscribe button. As of now, 71.8% of you guys watching these videos have not subscribed to us here at Phillies Digest just yet. So we are almost in the swing of the regular season where things are going to be nonstop action and want as many of you as part of it as possible. So make sure you are smashing that subscribe button if you have not already. We're recording this right near the end of the second exhibition game the Phillies have taken. Our guy Luke Arcane is going to be on here later, chopping things up and giving you a little bit of breakdown to that. But do want to give my thoughts from what we've seen from the first one, and do want to lead with a little bit of a write-up here. So with Max Kepler specifically, once again, that being the prize of the offseason from a positional standpoint. To highlight what he brought to the table last year, the numbers certainly do not blow you away. 8 home runs, 42 RBIs in his 368 at-bats there. That's just a 302 on-base percentage there. Struck out 80 times. He is still 32 years old and has made a couple tweaks to his swing, which I do think are kind of notable there. He seems pretty motivated by, or has a belief in, that this will be a difference maker. And to highlight what we've seen so far, this article writes up, Kepler, a 32-year-old left-handed corner outfielder with over 1,000 MLB games under his belt, might feel redundant in a Philadelphia lineup that already features prominent lefties like Kyle Schwarber and Bryce Harper, along with supporting cast pieces like Bryson Stott and Brandon Marsh. But by adding Kepler, President of Baseball Operations Dave Dombrowski doubled down on one of his team's advantages by making a strength even stronger, and the Phillies now look like even more of a nightmare for opposing right-handed starting pitchers. Kepler made his first appearance with his new team in spring training on Saturday, and he did not take long to show what he can bring to the lineup. In the third inning, while facing Packy Naughton of the Detroit Tigers, Kepler smoked the ground ball up the middle at an exit velocity of 104.1 miles per hour for an RBI single that extended Philadelphia's lead 3-0. Now, a quick note on this, I do think a lot of times there's a little bit too much made about the status of left-handed versus right-handed, both from the pitching and hitting standpoint. I conceptually understand the logic of obviously right-handed hitters hit lefty pitchers better and vice versa with that, but the bottom line to me is, if you're the better hitter, you should deserve to step in the box regardless of the matchup here. And I don't think Max Kepler is quite the caliber of guy that we should be viewing that way, but it does feel like the Phillies do kind of feel that way, that they do think this guy is going to be their everyday left fielder, despite the fact that he had never played left field at the major league level before. And I do think that's a little bit more of a noteworthy storyline than a lot of us have paid attention to. Now, granted, his glove's been excellent in right field, and he's a guy who has pretty great reputation as a defender in the field here, so I don't expect it to be a huge issue, but do think that is at least noteworthy here. Now, to continue on with the article, it writes, Kepler also reached base on a walk later and came around to score when bench spot candidate Buddy Kennedy hit a home run. The plate discipline Kepler showed on that walk, albeit just one walk in spring training, exemplifies the value that he could provide to this Phillies team come October. Philadelphia has performed fairly well over the course of the last 30 postseasons, though they've fallen increasingly shorter of winning it, all since losing in the 2022 World Series, dropping the NLCS in 2023, and bowing out in the NLDS in 2024. In these 3 postseason runs, the Phillies have struck out at clips of 27.2%, 25.2%, and 25.5% respectively. Last year, the number was the second worst out of the 8 playoff teams that advanced past the wild card round, and this is certainly something that is more of a concern for me. We all see it. This is one of those that it does not take a fine baseball analyst to break down. There's a lot of swings and misses on this Phillies team, and that's sort of something you just got to be braced for with this roster. Guys like Nick Castellanos, they're just going to be, that style of hitter is going to be at the forefront of those sort of results there. That's just kind of the way things are, and it's disappointing, it's frustrating, but those are the cards that have been dealt, and this Phillies team has to deal with that. Having Max Kepler as a guy who does show a little potential with a positive plate approach, with a little bit more of a smart at-bats, is something that I do think does matter. And I also need to see a little bit more progress in guys like Bryson Stott in this category, guys like JT Realmuto even. I would love for him to embrace that. There needs to be a little bit more complete hitters. So there is not this all-or-nothing approach, which the Phillies have leaned on a bit too often, and they do seem to believe Kepler fits in that category. Now, to continue on in this same article, it says, the propensity to strike out in big spots has become an ongoing problem when the Phillies begin to get exposed a little bit and the elite pitching on display every postseason. But in Kepler, they added another bat who does well at avoiding the empty at-bats that strikeouts guarantee. Kepler's career strikeout rate is just 18.6%, though he's regressed a bit in the last couple of seasons as he's aged. with his clip rising to 20.1% last year. That's still over 2 percentage points better than the Phillies' team rate next year, and his ability to put the ball in play in key spots will make the Philadelphia lineup deeper and tougher to navigate, even if he is not the consistent power threat that he used to be. And this kind of power threat is something that I personally don't fully subscribe to. There is a belief that his power numbers will return. Citizens Bank Park is, I guess, on the more friendly side compared to what we've seen at some of the stadiums in the league from a hitter's perspective here. Maybe Kepler can rekindle that he can kind of get a little more production from the power standpoint there. The bottom line to me is I'm looking at this guy as more of a hit for average guy. If we can start rounding doubles, spraying him in the gaps, thing like that, that is totally fine with me. Then I'm not going to be caught up in the power numbers, but certainly a storyline to monitor as well. Now, when in regard to Max Kepler, it does seem pretty clear-cut that the role is going to be, they expect him to be the everyday left fielder. For other guys in this roster, still figuring that out, and none of that may be more true than Edmundo Sosa specifically here. So Sosa, we do sort of know the story that he's been a platoon guy or backup guy that has jumped at the opportunity, has played some really good baseball in expanded stretches, and even last year, particularly the start of last season, was excellent for this Phillies team. Straight up outplaying Bryson Stott for stretches, which I think is a little bit more concerning on the Stott side of things than I do as more of a praise for Sosa specifically. But the Phillies also dropped a little report that they're considering using Sosa a bit in the outfield this year. And to dive into exactly what was said, it says the Philadelphia Phillies have found themselves in a roster predicament following Weston Wilson's injury, prompting the need for a versatile player to step up and fill the void. Edmundo Sosa, traditionally an infielder, is now undergoing a significant transformation as the team explores the possibility of utilizing his skill set in the outfield to enhance their offensive capabilities. And to continue on, manager Rob Thomson's endorsement of Sosa's transition underscores the team's confidence in his ability to excel in the outfield. By providing Sosa with ample game time in left field and center during spring training, the Phillies are laying groundwork for his potential role in the upcoming regular season. This strategic move not only addresses the immediate need for an outfield support, but also positions Sosa as a valuable asset in the team's pursuit of offensive firepower. And as far as balancing the defense and offense, the write-up says the decision to pivot towards Sosa as a viable outfield option stems from the team's quest for a balanced lineup that maximizes offensive outputs without compromising defensive integrity. While Johan Rojas' defensive prowess is undeniable, concerns loom over his offensive consistency, prompting the Phillies to explore alternative solutions. Sosa's proven track record as a reliable hitter, coupled with his potential for offensive growth, presents a compelling case for his inclusion in the outfield rotation. And I do think it's a little bit strong to say a reliable hitter in regards to Edmundo Sosa. He has had his flashes, but he has had his downfalls as well. But what I do think is notable here, there is a trust in Sosa that I think a lot of these fringe guys, these bench guys, have not earned to this point. And I think it's kind of nice that Rob Thomson is expressing this and giving him the opportunity to get on the field more. For Edmundo Sosa specifically, this is a no-brainer here. That yes, outfield is a slightly different skill set, but if you're as elite in the field or really talented in the field as he is shown to be, you should be able to pick that up. And for most baseball players that we've seen this before, he will not be the first, utility guy to just learn how to play the outfield. I'm confident Sosa can do it as long as he commits to it, which I do expect to be the case. And for Sosa specifically here, that he should be itching to get on the field as much as possible. The guy that this all kind of circled back to in my mind is Johan Rojas, that I do wonder if there's a little bit more doubt that bat can ever get there for Rojas than was initially the case. Now, we know the story of Rojas, that he's for sure always going to be a defense-first player and a guy who very clearly could walk into some significant gold gloves if he can get the reliable time on the field. That this guy can be one of the premier center fielders in the sport of baseball if he's able to just balance a bit of the approach at the plate. But we haven't seen a ton of positive signs in that direction. Now, I don't want to write the guy off. I'm a Johan Rojas guy. I'm locked in on that take here that I do believe he's a winning baseball player. But I also can't excuse that they have literally been sent out of the postseason with him at the plate staring down a strike. That we know the rate that teams are willing to pitch directly to him and how harmful that is from a roster construction standpoint, from a lineup standpoint of not having protection for some of your more notable hitters. Now, granted, if the reason the Phillies cannot win a World Series is Johan Rojas' bat, that says a little bit more about the guys in front of him than anything. But I do think they're getting a little bit sick of, we need to have 1 through 9 guys that can at least put bat on the ball. And with all due respect to Rojas, I don't think he fits in that category, at least at this point in his career. Now, he's put the work in. He's had a grind of an offseason playing down there in the Dominican Republic. I do hope that this all translates to the major league level, but who's to say? We will see how that all shakes out here. But I love that Sosa's at least a part of the picture. I still feel bad for Weston Wilson at its core, that I think this was a guy who would have had that final bench spot. And frankly, I was really impressed with what we saw from him last year. Guy who hit for the cycle, has some like dog in him, I would say, that he's competitive at the plate every time he gets up there, versatile in the positions he can play, and I do think him being capable of playing infield and outfield is a huge advantage from the long-term standpoint of what he can bring to a team. But maybe Sosa can fill that exact same void, and it will be nice to get him in the lineup at a little bit higher rate if this all comes together. So something to note there. Obviously, things still going down in spring training, less than 30 days until the regular season officially begins, but we're beginning to see the moving parts of the roster on this Phillies team, and some nice positive looks at some of the new faces as well. So let me know what you guys think about all of that, your thoughts on Edmundo Sosa specifically, and if you're sold on the Max Kepler experience already. The jury is still out on my mind. It is still quite early in the year, but excited and enticed and supportive of what we've seen to this point. So hope you guys feel the same way. As always, do want to remind you guys to make sure you are subscribing one more time here. That once again, just 28.2% of you guys watching these videos have subscribed just yet. Let's get this Phillies Digest family jumping. We got plenty to break down in the regular season, which is right around the corner to this point. So I'll be back next time right here on Phillies Digest. Talk with you then. Peace.